Hey guys, and welcome to the Fish Room. I'm Rachel O'Leary, and today we are doing maintenance on my 150-gallon Hillstream tank, and that's because I have a special guest coming to film the Fish Room this week, so stay tuned for that. You may have noticed that I've been uploading daily, and that's because my buddy Joey, the king of DIY, has challenged me to do so for a week. Now, I am not entirely sure that I'll be able to do it, but we're going to give it a try. And if it goes well, maybe I'll do more frequent videos again in the future. So make sure you let me know below in the comments what you think about this daily thing. I don't want to oversaturate your feeds, but it's been kind of a fun challenge for me. Anyway, today we're going to clean the glass, prune some plants, do a big water change, and disrupt the substrate a bit in order to get this tank looking its absolute best. So let's get started. So today I'm going to start by cleaning the glass, and I just use a razor blade for this. I find it to be the easiest way. There's certainly plenty of products on the market that will clean your glass with handles, but I tend to do things, well, quite honestly, I tend to be too lazy to find my algae scrapers. It's really important when trying to film an aquarium or get images in an aquarium that the glass is very clean. So I'm trying to go around the fish room and clean all the glass on the tanks that I think my friend might be interested in. And if I'm being honest, I haven't really cleaned the glass much since I've had my knee replaced, and that's because it hasn't been particularly easy for me to be on ladders. But I'm doing way better, so I'm taking the time to do so now. And I will have to clean the outer glass as well, which is not as bad as the inner glass. Now luckily in this aquarium, which again is 150 gallons, there are quite a lot of algae eaters, which means that it doesn't get too bad. I do have a little bit of green spot algae in here, but that's about it. Now, just to remind you about this aquarium, it is obviously planted and houses all sorts of Hillstream species, and this means these are species that come from a high flow, cooler water, mountainous environment, many of which have modified fins in order to grip the surfaces and stay stable in areas of high flow. And I utilize a corner matin filter, which I've plumbed an FX5 to and made a custom spray bar with upgraded tubing of a larger size in order to get the most flow possible in this aquarium. Now, I do have an entire playlist to this aquarium. It was the very first one I started on my channel, and it's creeping up on 3 years old. It's still one of my favorites. I find myself getting lost in it every single day. The fish in here started out as all Asian Hillstream, but it's grown to include some North American natives, things like shiners. And it is an absolutely fascinating display of really just cool fish. And even though it's 3 years old, it's still only about halfway stocked. So I still have more fish that I want to get for here, but a lot of the fish that I want to put in here are pretty rare, difficult to source, and seasonal. So this tank has been absolutely a marathon, not a sprint. The substrate in this aquarium is completely inert. It's Carib Sea Supernaturals Peace River. And I chose it because it has a very small, smooth grain. Some of the species that I've placed in this aquarium are substrate spawners, and the smooth substrate's really important. There's also a bunch of loaches in here. Also Hillstream loaches, so that grain size and shape is really important for their happiness and feeding. So I've cleaned all the glass that I plan to clean on the inside. I'll save the outside glass for last because I'm just going to drip all over it, but we may go in and prune some plants. You can see that since I've added the new lights, growth, especially on this side of the aquarium, has just taken off. You can see how great that moss looks. It had been getting a little bit brown, but you can see all the new growth that is just busting out of this aquarium, and it's really rewarding. I was kind of afraid I was going to have to pull a lot of the plants in this half of the aquarium and redo it because my light died on this side and they were just not doing well, but they certainly have rebounded. And even this Bucephalandra, which I believe is a brownie type, is really killing it. Now, if you remember way back when, there used to be a big stand of Buse here as well. Over the years, it just wouldn't stay there. I'm actually tempted to cut that branch, but I think I'll leave it for now just because, you know, why rock the boat on something that's been working really well. Now, this aquarium gets 2 water changes a week of varying sizes, anywhere from 30 to 50%. And that's simply because it's really important to maintain the dilution of all the fish in this aquarium as they come from really, really pure dilute headwaters in a Hillstream environment. That's also why I chose an inert substrate and don't use any fertilizers. We'll take a closer look at a lot of the fish in a little bit. I will be moving my mountain minnows from outside back into this aquarium, as well as way more Brachydaniochaethet, the orange fin danios. But it's still a bit early in the season, so we're not going to do that yet. I want to take advantage of as much breeding time outside for those fish as I can. Now, there's not very much plant matter in here that needs attention right now. Everything looks pretty green and healthy. So I think what I'll do is I'll do my chopstick trick and really try and clean up the substrate at this front edge so that it looks a little less grubby. So let me grab that and we'll get going. Now you may be asking yourself, why Rachel, what's the chopstick trick? I have shown you this in a very, very old Tuesday tip. I just take a chopstick and rubber band it to my siphon. Now most often I'll do this when I'm just using tubing to drain a tank, but because this is a big tank and I don't mind draining quite a bit of it, I'm hooking it to a full siphon. And I do this so that I can poke around the bottom of the plants where these dense thickets are to remove some of the mulm without disrupting the roots of the plants. Crypts in particular are prone to melting if you disrupt their roots, but I really want to get this substrate clean, so I'm going to use this trick today. The chopstick makes it so I can use the pointed end to just disrupt that substrate, and then the siphon catches the dirt. It's especially useful in teeny tiny aquariums or in aquariums that have really dense foreground planting or carpets. You can also do this to just turn the substrate to disrupt the, sometimes over time, I mean this is a 3-year-old substrate, there gets to be a little bit of algae growth on the top of the gravel. You can use the chopstick to just disrupt the surface and give it a fresher appearance. Now in a tank that has sand, it's really useful as well to poke into the deeper areas of sand to prevent the buildup of anaerobic pockets. You could certainly just do this with your finger or, you know, the siphon tube as well, but I don't want all these crypts to melt. Especially since this tank's going to be filmed soon. So I'll use it to poke around all the bases of the rocks. You'll see there's not that much coming up from this, but it does give the substrate line at the front of the aquarium a much fresher look. Now, as the water line drops, it can start to become a fountain, so I do need to turn off the pump for this. The other thing that I like to do is take my siphon and press it into this corner matin filter as I'm vacuuming in order to remove any accumulated mulm. And this just prevents me from having to take out the corner filter as often. I've only taken it out twice in 3 years, or nearly 3 years. It is about due, but I'm not going to do it today because I don't want to have all the dirt that will fall out of the bottom going all over my plants. So I'm just going to spot clean it by pressing my siphon into the foam and removing as much of the mulm as I can. And that will help polish the water way better. And then maybe next week when I do maintenance, I will pull out the entire filter. But you can see the amount of dirt going up the siphon tube from me doing this. Now my substrate line is pretty much cleaned up, and I've turned all the substrate in the front and sucked on my and siphoned my corner filter. So I'm just going to continue my water change and then work on cleaning the outside glass. Now in a lot of aquascapes, this would be the point where you could pull focal rocks to take a toothbrush or whatever to clean off the algae. But because this aquarium is full of so many obligate algae eaters, I never clean the algae off the rocks. I kind of like the natural patina, if you will, that they get. You can see all the fish are completely unaffected by me wrecking their tank, basically. You can see the tank's a little bit cloudy from me disrupting basically the entire substrate bed, but really not too bad. So as soon as our total water change gets to about here, I'll stop draining and start refilling, or I may even start refilling now. I often will do that, drain and fill at the same time. One other thing that I do is I use these clip lamp things in order to hold my hose to my sink so that it doesn't fall out and douse the water. I mean, you can see that this one is well loved. It's pretty rusty, but I just run the siphon tube through the hole in the clip lamp clip, and it prevents my water from going all over the floor. Now the fish in this aquarium absolutely love water changes, and we'll probably start to see these yellowfin shiners, these silver fish with the black stripes, start to fire up in their breeding dress colors, which will mean that they will get an iridescence to them as well as some prominent red markings. You can see it's already beginning. Their heads will also turn totally white, and their fins will get day glow. This tank probably has to be one of the most rewarding tanks I've ever built. It's full of so many neat species, and I really encourage you guys, if you're interested in any of these sorts of fish, to go bigger than you think you need. The natural behaviors you get with all this dilution and all the surfaces for the grazers to graze on is just really, really incredible. Once the tank is filled up enough that it won't spray water outside of the aquarium, plug my filter back in. And again, this is just because this has a spray bar right up at the surface, and it'll actually shoot water out of the aquarium if I allow it to be on while the water line is low. And that's why, as I mentioned, a lot of times I'll drain and fill at the same time so I don't have to turn off that filter. Next, I just take a clean rag with a little bit of vinegar on it and wipe down all the glass so that it's nice and shiny. This will also help me see if I missed any spots with my razor blade when I was cleaning the interior glass. That's about it for maintenance on this aquarium. It's a very low maintenance aquarium. It requires very, very little effort on my part other than doing good solid water changes. The plants grow. I have very little need for pruning, as almost all the plants in this aquarium are slow growing. Occasionally I need to pull out some browning fronds of the Java moss or the bulbitis that's in here, but for the most part it is just fill, rinse, and repeat. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that and enjoyed seeing the process of this. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of these upcoming daily videos, as well as my special guest and a bunch of new projects I have planned.